Welcome to the Trailer Park Podcast, where we go full throttle on faith, freedom, and cash flow. We dive in and have the real, unfiltered conversations with industry professionals about buying deals and creating lasting passive income. To introduce everybody, this is a good friend of mine I met back in 2014 on the airport here, where our office is at Gillespie Field in El Cajon, California. And he's a well-accomplished Navy SEAL, entrepreneur in the media business for the Special Forces community, and a New York Times bestselling author for multiple books that I actually just caught up and read a handful of your books in the last few weeks, and a fellow pilot friend of mine. So I'd like to introduce Brandon Webb to the Trailer Park Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been a long time since we got to catch up, and I got to catch up with your son Hunter, who's seems like a badass kid. I'm really excited for you guys.
He's sharper than me, that's for sure.
Oh, he's spinning circles around me on this old computer stuff and AI, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know, man. I just call him. I just call these brokers and ask them for trailer parks.
I'm excited. He's done a great job for us with our first purchase.
Love it. And you guys are enjoying that one in Florida?
Yeah. So I had looked at selling some of my residential rentals and consolidating into self-storage because it just seemed like a great investment. I learned from one of my Harvard Business School friends, Michael, who's a German venture capitalist that lives in Hong Kong. He started talking about self-storage in the US and what a big opportunity it was, because the conglomerates, like the public storages of the world, only control about 10% of the market. So I started focusing on learning all about, the investing in self-storage that I could, watch a bunch of videos on YouTube, and then decided to buy a property, put a property in contract. And then Hunter's, coming up on, he's halfway through his freshman year at St. Andrews in Scotland. And before he was kind of off to college, I said, look, I'm happy to put a roof over your head and pay for your college, but you're going to need to get a job for your other activities. I said, I'm not funding your lifestyle. So I said, you're going to have to think about a job, or you can basically be the managing partner for this self-storage business. And so he thought about it and then said, look, I would like to do that. And so I worked out a profit share agreement with him, and we found just under 100 units in Lady Lake, Florida, outside of Orlando, which is pretty close to considered kind of the outer part of Orlando, I guess. But
yeah, suburb.
Great property, in excellent shape. It was just a classic, mom and pop owned it cash. They were just kind of tired of dealing with managing, the units, and they were, they weren't web savvy. They weren't on
marketing and all that.
Yeah, marketing, online payments, all that stuff. So we bought the property right in the middle of the pandemic, and Hunter did everything. He stood up the LLC. He migrated, in some cases had to get on the phone with people to migrate them from paper leases to online leases. He did all the SEO, and we took, I think we were 55% occupancy. Now we're at 100%.
Wow.
Less than 6 months later, we just did we raised the rent 20% in January 1st, and we're still between 20 and 30% below our competitors. And so when, Hunter did that email and notified everybody, look, we're raising rents, but here are all our closest competitors, and these are what they're charging for your unit. So he did a really good email. But anyway, that's kind of the long answer to how we got started. And now he just made an offer on one in outside of Dallas.
Love it.
So yeah, it's been a great learning curve, and I think I'm sold on the self-storage. It's just, as somebody, you could probably relate to this, right? I've owned apartment buildings in the past, and inevitably you get in sometimes this moral dilemma where people can't afford to live to pay the rent and you feel so terrible. I don't feel bad auctioning off someone's storage unit that has a bunch of crap in there, and we just ran our
hoarding goods.
Yeah. It's like, I don't have that same kind of issue. We just auctioned off our first unit. Hunter did it all online. So that was new to us too. And yeah, I don't feel bad. It's like, come get your shit or
we'll auction it or we're going to sell that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great deal. And I actually have, I think I mentioned this, but I want to get, so one of the big SoCal storage guys, I grew up with one of their daughters. Like we just happen to be the same age and bump into each other, but A1 Self-Storage out here is a family friend of mine.
Yeah. They're big.
Yeah. And so, I'd love to connect Hunter, and I was going to interview the grandpa that has a bunch of time, and he's kind of a fun, spunky, like Trump supporter type guy too. And so anyways, I'll have to try to connect them and get them on there.
Hunter's got a lot of ideas around technology. So he's kind of thinking about, how what he knows how to do in the machine learning AI space, like how he can apply that to self-storage, because there's a bunch of problems on the operations side that could be solved with just knowing your customer better. So like scraping the data, collecting better data, cross-referencing it, and finding out like who are the good customers. Is this customer based on the entry survey for the application for the unit? Is he a high-risk customer, low-risk customer? Is the customer going to stay longer? That kind of thing. And then also just like trends, what are the kind of trends for self-storage? I mean, outside of the obvious, right? Like we know like population growth rates by state are good indicators, but there's weird stuff too, right? Like there's stuff.
Who are these demographics? Who are these people?
Yeah. And then there's like the micro demographics where maybe Michigan is a declining state, but Detroit is increasing in population. And so there's like an opportunity in downtown Detroit, for instance. And I just pulled that out of my ass. But those are the kind of like weird stuff that it would take an analyst, a year to kind of study. But if you can write a software algorithm and apply machine learning, the servers can crunch those numbers in like seconds, right? So
yeah,
and that's where you get that's where you get a huge competitive edge. And so he's trying to think about, ways to do that. The important thing as a dad, I've got him thinking about business and investing, and now he's excited about it. And who knows what the hell he'll do, but my job's done. Like he's got a taste of it because you
lit the fire.
Yeah. I remember the first time he sent me a text and was like, Dad, last night, like I went to bed last night, woke up this morning and we have 3 new tenants, and that's like making money while you're sleeping. That kind of clicked for him. So,
oh man, I love that. I agree with you. And, my dad and my story, I just was starting to write a little like email for like the new year type thing to our investor database. And I got thinking and reminiscing on after I just finished your Power of Thought book, because I was like, a couple more had accumulated. I hadn't searched for your books in a while. And so I read your book and it got me thinking about like, I have some interesting like stories from like why we bought mobile home parks. It was 2007, 2008. It was the same kind of thing. My dad was like thinking about what's next in his life, where we want to put energy for him, for the family. Like he's like, I want to get out of construction. So he closed Comfort Construction, started going out looking for how to get on the ownership side, but not having a huge amount of capital at his disposal, like literally just, closing a construction business and, living on credit cards kind of scenario where it's like, okay, what do we do? And so we went to a Rich Dad, Poor Dad seminar, and he kind of like invited the family. And I was like, hell yeah. So I missed high school to go and listen.
Nice.
And it was just, it clicked for me. Like, I feel like Hunter really clicked in, where it's like, well, gosh, if there's a world out there where I don't have to trade time for money and I can work and maybe make less money in the short term, but long term, I'll be way better off and just live on cash flow, I'm in. And it was like, and we heard about trailer parks, and yeah, it was like Dad and I looked at each other like a light bulb went off when they talked about mobile home parks, and the kind of the ease to them. Like once you get them established, get rid of like the weirdos, the drug activity or anything like that. They really are simple, and it's just collecting space rent. You don't even own the structure. You don't take care of plumbing, toilets, any of that. And I'm like, well, hell, even at 18, 19, I can figure this out. I can manage it. I love it. When I talked to Hunter, I was like, all right, and he was all excited, dude. He was like, we were laughing. I'm like, you like this shit, don't you? Yeah, you got the bite. So yeah, it's good. So I was interested though, from your perspective, why do you like trailer parks? Because you and I had a couple of drinks years ago, and you're like, man, I love the mobile home park business. And so I wanted to shed some light from your perspective on that for others.
So, and look, I'm an investor in at least one of your projects.
Yeah.
I like, I think in my past life, I would have loved to be an economist, but I like watching like macro, micro trends and just noticing how, for whatever reasons, the income gap is getting wider in America. So we need more affordable housing, right? And trailer park fits that very well. So that's one reason. Also, like you said, the structures are you own the land essentially, which I really like also. And they're just a good, stable, safe investment. I feel like too many people are trying to like place bets on these tech companies, and they're, look, I carefully invest in a few tech companies every year through my friend Kamal, who's, a Silicon Valley guy. And he told me, he's like, some of these investments will never hit regular angel community because you have to be in with the kind of Silicon Valley crowd to be able to make some of these investments. And all that aside, they're still super high risk, right?
Right. Even if you know the damn people.
Yeah. I like the trailer parks because, you get it's a very stable return, and it's an asset-backed investment. And I think a lot of people that I know too, like very wealthy people that I feel like they should have more money in real estate and they don't. They're all in tech and Bitcoin. And I'm like, shit, I was like, real estate's never let me down. I've been investing in real estate for 20 years now, since I was, 20-year-old in the Navy. Bought my first house when I was 21 in San Diego. It was a multifamily property up by San Diego State. But yeah, I love real estate as an investment. And I guess fortunately for us, a lot of people aren't focused on it, right? It's like they want the sexy tech investments.
It definitely doesn't have the sexy appeal, but I do think people in mass right now are waking up to hard assets like never before. And we have like the big pension funds, investing huge sums of money with Blackstone and these other groups. And they're like sometimes our toughest competitor on these ratty old mobile home parks. And it's like, really?
Yeah. And even like, I think BlackRock recently acquired a massive portfolio, right?
Yep. And Blackstone and BlackRock, I feel like they're like cousin companies or something. But yeah. They bought, we were actually tracking off market a portfolio. We tried to tie it up, and it would have been like, I think it ended up being like a $260 million portfolio. We were going to try to help the family by reducing complexity and buy one at a time, because they were an old family, really not sophisticated in transactional, know-how. And so we were like, well, hey, let's just work with us here and we'll buy one at a time. Well, Blackstone ended up getting in there. They ended up listing it with a big firm, and they sold it for like 270 million. And it was like, damn, it was cool though, because we were having conversations with them prior. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, you win some, you lose some, but need to at least be at the table.
Yeah. And then there's still, I feel like there's a lot of opportunities, whether you want to buy a few as passive income, and you're more like a smaller entity investing for kind of personal cash flow. But there's also big opportunities because look, the BlackRocks and the Blackstones in the world, they need to deploy that kind of capital. They can't go out, they can't hunt down 100-unit place in Texas that's undermanaged and in a great area and should be crushing it. They just can't do it. So if you're able to like get in there and start rolling these places up, which is what Hunter and I are doing, you still have a competitive advantage because those guys aren't.
They're just not that kind of time. They can't spend the time.
Even the conglomerates, I'm surprised the conglomerates, and I'll probably kick myself because somebody's going to like, if I was a conglomerate, I would stand up, a small, like little scrappy investment arm and said, okay, let's start rolling up these smaller properties. Cause those guys too, right? They're usually developing and building new, and it's, probably 1,000 units they're building. Like I'm in easy storage in Hoboken across the Hudson River from Manhattan. I have stuff right now. During COVID, I moved out of my New York apartment. I'm paying them like $350 a month, climate controlled, and they've got at least 1,000 units in there, and like one person selling boxes in the shop. The rest is all automated, right? It's right. Great.
That is. So, and what's always actually been kind of amazing to me, and Dad and I have had this discussion a bunch, is what is it? But there is something that happens where occupancy tends and trends to go up in a downturn, right? In storage, because people are relocating and they can't get rid of their shit. Like that's what blows our mind is the willingness to spend the money on stuff.
I mean, I was nervous closing on this property, right? Because it was during a pandemic, and my friend is in real estate, manages a big portfolio of mostly like residential income properties, and his name's Jeremy. And I was like, hey, is this a good idea? He's like, I'm telling you, in downturns, he's like, these properties do even better because people just are looking for a place to store their crap.
Cheap and reasonably. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And in some cases, like there's all these other reasons. And this would be where it'd be interesting to start like gathering all this data. A local church rents, I think, 2 or 3 units from us just for overflow, for
events and stuff or whatever,
for chairs and events and stuff like that. A pool company stores all their like pool equipment stuff and with us. So it's like all these other uses that you really don't think about too, which are interesting. But it would be cool to see like what's the ratio, like how many are the ratio of like business owner / church group to got families just storing stuff.
You're right. I bet you it's significant on the commercial side of like supporting some type of business, or like I remember in the day, like I bought a bicycle and the guy's like, oh yeah, meet me at my storage. He had all the new bikes in his storage, whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, and because, where's he going to store all these bikes shipping in from wherever?
Especially with these little e-commerce businesses they need warehouse space, right? They don't want to put it in the garage. The wife doesn't want it in there.
Yep.
But yeah, that's where, and maybe there's a whole business in developing and catering to that market, but that's where I think there's a ton of inefficiencies in the self-storage as there is in the mobile home parks, right? Like that's what you got.
Totally. And we actually, so what you hit on is exactly our niche, and it's no secret in the marketplace for like our realm. You made the point of it's an allocation issue actually for the big dogs. It's not that like, it just takes so much time and bandwidth to buy 100 space deal or 100 unit storage deal to where they literally can't take the time to allocate the cost to pay the people to do it because they need to place hundreds of millions of dollars, not 5 and 10s.
Yeah.
I think that's a golden opportunity for everyone in that, come on, they just can't. They have billions of dollars.
And I think the statistic was 10% of the market is controlled by the conglomerates. 90% of the, or at least in self-storage is controlled by mom and pops. That's where the opportunity exists. And that's kind of what we're doing. And you have, as right? Like you guys are in the family business, mobile home parks, but you can't just like buy a property and check out and hire a manager and think that things are going to go okay. Like the property we offered on was a South African family. They bought it, tried to hire a manager. The manager didn't do crap for them, and the property just never got above 60% occupancy, and it's in a good location, but they're not on the SEO with the Google advertising, on the, everyone's, it's just not automated the way it should be. So
even the like regional like operators, like we're just now getting into like the big SEO push for our residents and all that, because we bought a bunch of like heavy value add deals where they were 40% vacant. And so we floored damn near 100 homes this year and are going to sell and rent all of them. And so it was like all of a sudden we had a new marketing need. So we booted up and we hired a company to kind of redo our website and help us through all of that. But yeah, it's amazing. Like nobody's doing that. And the rents are so cheap, like rents in Phoenix. And that's mostly where we're at currently, but then we're starting to look all over too. It was like when we were first in there, $400 rents, maybe pushing $500. Well, now rents are quickly like going through towards $700, and percentage wise, it's huge, And so it's just amazing to see the inefficiencies. And then the multifamily realm has even gotten that much more competitive. So the room between apartments and MH are staggering now. Because all these big time apartment firms that have really sharpened the pencil on how they operate them have widened that whole gap, which is cool. More opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're about to be in a really big recession, right? Like we haven't really felt it yet because of a little bit of stimulus money.
Yeah. The COVID QE.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that these kind of digital companies dragging up the stock market, but I feel like it's going to really hit home in probably end of Q1. People are eventually going to have to pay rent. They're going to have to start paying their mortgage payments. Foreclosures are going to spike. Bankruptcies are going to go. It's going to get real for people. And anytime that happens, just like the last downturn, there's tons of opportunities. So that's why I sold a lot of stuff that I like, watch collection, stuff like that, where I'm just stockpiling cash to invest in real estate when the shit hits the fan, and it's coming. Like it's coming, it's unavoidable. And people, it just hasn't hit yet because of COVID. Everyone kind of like got a year to use COVID as an excuse, right? Like, sorry, I'm late for the meeting. Sorry, I missed the email. COVID. And it's same with like rent forgiveness, mortgage forgiveness, all this stuff. And now you're going to have a situation where, okay, the COVID carousel is stopped, and now it's time to like pay the bills, and it's going to get serious. But the point I'm trying to make is there's going to be tremendous opportunity for seller financing, just deals if you have cash to go in and just scoop up some deals all cash because people just need the money.
I agree. Yeah. And so what's your take on, I wanted to ask you about the Biden, Trump, and like the China war. Like, do you think we're at war with the rest of the world or anything? Like, do you have any little tidbits in that realm?
Look, I base my opinion off of my military experience. Also, I'm in this Harvard Business program, and I have about 70 classmates from all around the world. 2 are from China. One is a Chinese billionaire, Diana. She's like a steel princess in China. I feel like we're in a kind of strategic, I almost feel like China's playing chess and US playing checkers from a kind of global economic power standpoint.
Right. That's funny.
We're closely aligned to China because they're a massive trade partner, right? Like 90% of our pharmaceuticals are manufactured in China. Like that's crazy, right? Probably shouldn't be that way, but a lot of stuff we've learned in COVID.
Right.
As far as China goes, for sure, they're about, if they aren't, they are already, they're very close to surpassing us as the largest global economy. Look, there's advantages and disadvantages to our form of government, right? One of the disadvantages, I would say, is that we're in today's day and age, like we're no longer in a world where, information is controlled by a few media networks or governments, or it takes, a telegram or telephone. The internet stuff happens so fast. they skipped the ATM and went straight to mobile banking on cell phones. Things happen so fast that they can make quick changes, as we saw with COVID. They can tell millions of people what to do and force them to do it. We cannot do that in America. The problem is, from a strategic standpoint, China thinks long term. The way our political system is structured is every 4 years. So it's very short term thinking. This crazy kind of bullshit 5,000 page stimulus document, the reason that there's all this foreign aid and weird stuff in there is because,
all these favors have to be done or whatever.
Yeah. Or the way our political system works, to get a bipartisan bill passed, you got to like scratch somebody's back and they got to do this for you. And it's like, that's how you end up with this 5,000 page unreadable, bill. Yeah. And look, I love America. It's one of the greatest countries on the planet. I would not want to live in China.
Oh God. Right.
However, like you got
to acknowledge the issues, and we have a weakness. And like, do you think there's a chance that we're being subverted or a special interest group are just covering all of our politicians and just?
We're just, by nature of us being a free country, and look, it's still good. The freedom is great. And I think everybody naturally gravitates towards that. But China spying on us, the reason there's no secret they sent all those students from China over to American universities. The professors that are teaching in American universities caught spying. Like they're a huge technology threat because they don't respect intellectual property, right? They just steal IP. But the thing that makes China kind of, we're like that movie Step Brothers with Will Ferrell. Eventually we can fight all we want, but we're so intertwined that we got to
figure it out.
We got to get along because we're trade partners. We don't have that with Russia. And that's a concern for me. Like Russia, Putin has to be one of the most powerful guys in the world. We're not a strong trade partner with with Russia. We should be, that's an issue. What concerns me, back to the question, is Iran. You get these governments with nuclear capability, potentially like Iran, and it's coupled with this radical Islamic ideology where they don't give a shit. They're just gonna if they could, plant a nuclear bomb and kind of not take, try and distance themselves from it in a major city in the US, they'll do it because they believe that, their God is better. So that's the kind of stuff that scares shit out of me.
Right.
They don't think rationally, right? You have this irrational, thought process where the Chinese are very rational. They're going to come, they want to win. They for sure let COVID out of the bottle. They knew they had a big problem back probably as early as last September, but they just let travel happen. I don't know how many hundreds of flights kept flying into major American cities out of Wuhan directly.
Oh yeah.
From September to what, January? It was nuts. So I asked one of my Chinese classmates, would China do this? They're like, oh, absolutely. They're not going to let their economy get devastated. They're going to share the love with everybody. And now look, China is the one on top. So, it's an interesting thing that's happening. But I think at the end of the day, democracy always seems to win. And especially in a place like Ukraine, which I've visited on multiple occasions, they got a taste of freedom. The entrepreneurial drive is alive and well in Ukraine. Those guys are hungry. And they're already, I think they started that filter company that Instagram bought for hundreds of millions of dollars. I guess Facebook owns, but now started out of Ukraine. So, and they declared independence, I think back in 2012 from Russia. Right. But, anyway, dude, you got me on a full.
No, I love it. So, okay. So then, prediction. I mean, are you thinking the official narrative? So then on the media side, what I think is interesting, from your Force 12 media is how bad is the media now? How propagandized is it? All that. Cause that's what I'm kind of starting to not trust anything.
Yeah. So, and we changed our name to Soft Rep Media. So,
okay.
Yeah. So, and for those listening, like SOFREP is foreign policy, domestic security with some military news. So we have actually a bigger non-military readership
Interesting.
than we do like veterans and military. The thing that we like to talk about is just kind of call it as we see it, we don't choose sides, right? Like if Trump is acting like a jerk on a certain issue, we'll call him out for it. When he does something right, we give him credit for it, right? Like I think Trump did a great job as a non-interventionalist, saying, look, we're not going to get involved with Syria because Syria is extremely important to Russia as a strategic base. And if we try to support the rebels in Syria, we're really fighting a fucking war with Russia. And that's not something we should be doing.
You can't sugarcoat that.
Yeah. And, Obama carried out, a lot of terrible foreign policy practices that saw us spread all over the place. Like from the Philippines, North Africa, we destabilized Libya. Now it's still a mess. We've destabilized, the Middle East. Like, look, if you want to pull out of there, you better make sure you do it in a way that the region is stable. That kicked off civil war in Syria and this massive flow of immigrants to the
Germany,
to the European Union. So
they're hating all of that.
Oh, the trend of open border is now like everyone's closed border. And then you have Brexit. Like we are essentially responsible for Brexit when you really think about cause and effect. So, look back to what I said, like there's good and bad. We try and, on our team, we try and hold a pretty firm stance with what journalism used to be. The problem is
100%,
journalism is pretty much dead. Like you cannot find it even at the New York Times, which once, even though they're a pretty liberal outlet, Washington Post, New York Times 30 years ago had a very good reputation for digging out these stories like Washington Post uncovered Watergate, right? It's unfortunate because we're in a day and age where I think of that song Dirty Laundry by Don Henley, where it's just like we want to report on the drama,
the day or the week
every article is sensationalized for clicks because they want to make ad dollars or they want to get more subscribers. So it's like they have to put these flashy, headlines that are just over sensationalized. And then you got to take sides, right? You got like Fox on one side and the liberal media on the other. And it's like, you kind of draw that line in the sand and it's like, you're serving these two audiences, which I think, it's a reflection of the way we're so divided politically now. When you look at the last election, it's a shame we can't get somebody that can really bring America together, right? It's just like, it's a shame. We're so divided and it's very hard to express opinions. You're worried about people's feelings being hurt. And it's like, Jesus Christ, man. Like,
I know. How do you live like that? How do you actually get shit done?
I'm sorry I called you a woman and you have another pronoun, but you're wearing a dress for Christ's sake. It's just like that.
Yeah, dude. I think that they've gotten us as a country very confused.
Yeah. And even like I'm a single guy dating women. It's the most confusing thing ever. I'm like, it's like you're yelled at for opening a door. And then at another time you're like, you don't open the door, then you get yelled at for that too. Cause it's like, this weird,
like the woman
gender identity, future is female. Like the future is all everybody, like I'm glad women rights have come a long way, but it doesn't, you can like shit on me.
It just gets awkward. Like, well, okay, I'm trying to be nice here. And So interesting. Well, okay. So do you think Biden's in there then? Do you think it's over? Or do you think Trump's
No, I was a big fan of the Trump political hand grenade inside of the DC Beltway. I think we need major political reform.
Yeah.
I laugh how these politicians can call Bezos to the carpet for having a massive market share when the Republican Democrat Party, it's a duopoly. They control who we get every 4 years. And usually it's like a head or gut choice, right? They're no good choices. They're not delivering like really exciting young candidates that have a finger on the pulse of technology and how do we like drag the American financial system out of the fucking Stone Ages and like be able to just fully bank on our phone, right? Like instead of the credit cards, stuff like that drives me crazy. Our healthcare system is in massive need of overhaul, but the Democrat and Republican Party, that's it. They control who gets put on the ticket every 4 years. And that drives me crazy. And
but do you think Biden's in there or do you think Trump's
No, the short answer, yeah, I think he's in there. And think about this. We can trust everything that we hold dear on our cell phones, right? And I'm talking, there's a great movie called Perfect Strangers. It's in Italian with subtitles. Highly recommend you watch it.
All right.
Movie, basically, the plot is this dinner party, a man and a wife. He's like a doctor, she's a lawyer. They have a bunch of friends over for dinner, and the wife's serving dinner, and one of the friends is on the cell phone, and she goes, "Hey, put the phone away. We're having dinner." He's like, "Oh no, there's nothing I wouldn't share with anybody." She's like, "Oh really? Let's do an experiment." So for the next 2 hours while we have dinner, every phone call, text, email has to be shared with the group. And this shit starts unraveling.
Oh God.
The guy's on the balcony to the single guy, and he's like, "Hey, I'm cheating on my wife. My mistress is going to send me a text in about 45 minutes. Can you please switch phones with me?" You know what I mean? So it's a great movie. But the point is,
yeah, like there's so much shit going on our phones.
And we bank on the phones, and we can't vote on our phone. We don't have like a simple Face ID to where we can hit a button and vote, and there's no question on voter fraud.
Right.
You can fuck with anything. The data's there in real time. Like we're smart enough as a country to do that at a minimum. We're counting ballots. Are you fucking kidding me? Like we're back in the Stone Ages, man. And so that's what drives me crazy.
I think there's a shot though. I just say that. I think there's still a shot that like, so do you follow like General Flynn and those guys? Like, so what do you think about all that?
The problem is it's like anything.
DC's too far gone kind of a thing.
And look, the media and the world has already moved on.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like all the leaders of the world, all the papers of the world, and that shapes the reality that we live in. And, look, is he going to be in a very powerful position in the Republican Party with his family? Yeah, 100%. I would bet if I had all my net worth and I could bet it, I would bet it that Trump's out. Like, it's just, I just can't see a path to the presidency. And a lot of it, look, is there, doubt about voter count? Yeah, 100%. And that's why I'm saying, like, we shouldn't be counting ballots by hand. Like, we should be casting them on real time, like Google Analytics, and you just see it. Everybody gets to vote. And it's tracked, it's traceable. The one thing I love about digital is you can there's a trail. You can trace it down.
Yeah. And it looks like there was some maybe manipulation there too. So yeah. I'm wondering if, so I'll take the other side of the bet, and I'll just, I'll bet you a dinner out there in Puerto Rico or something, because I want to come out and hang out.
Let's bet $100.
All right, $100.
Yeah, we'll Venmo.
$100. I'll bet the side that I don't think Trump's going to go down without at least airing out some dirty laundry. And
that may happen, but I'm saying there's no way Biden doesn't get sworn in.
Oh, okay. So no, I'll still take the bet. I think Trump's going to be back in there. And that's why I made this hat versus another. But I've been taking that.
That would be the best $100 I transferred over Venmo too, by the way.
All right. I love it. Well, that's good. We covered some good ground. So I read your other book, The Fear. What's the name of the title? Was it?
Mastering Fear.
And what I made a note of when I listened to that was that's what I feel like they're driving with the coronavirus and all of this is fear. They're just driving people into constant state of fear. And that's what I But to your book's point, most people have never been taught how to handle fear, so that they're just all over the board. I'm like that one weirdo walking into the store without a mask on just to check the temperature on who's who and if there are any other people that aren't living in fear.
Yeah, I just don't, I believe in freedom. I don't like to wear that stupid mask.
Me neither.
I feel like it's probably unhealthy even to breathe in our own CO2. So especially when I'm out riding my bike or walking.
Oh God. Yeah.
Not being a jerk and like getting in people's faces. If I go into a store, it's crowded, I'll wear the mask. But I get yelled at all the time
for not having it upright or whatever.
Yeah. New York, like a couple of weeks ago, but I'm like, whatever, it's America. Like, I don't think the law.
So this new mandate from all the governors should be the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just in.
No, it's a tough deal.
It started on that. Like the whole, I think this pandemic has really showed us a lot of inefficiencies and at the local government level. And they just can't, it's like the worst DMV employee imaginable making rules on how business should operate in COVID. The governor and the mayor and all the politicians of New York City have ripped the heart out of New York City's restaurant owners, just like that Indiana Jones Temple of Doom movie where the guy like rips the fucking heart out of the guy's chest. That's what I feel like they've done. I'm like, you guys are killing me.
No shit. Well, and then I heard then Cuomo will try to go in there and have dinner and they're like, hey, get the fuck out of here.
I know they banned him and the mayor, they banned from the coalition they had of restaurants. And good,
no shit. I would too.
Go in CVS, you can go in Saks, it's crowded, people are shopping, but you can't volunteer. Like, I'm going to take the risk and eat indoors at a socially distanced table because I love eating out in New York City. And that's what makes the city special is entertainment, food. But you're just going to say, no, sorry. It's just a mess, man. But it just shows you how silly and how much we have a lot of people in government that I wouldn't trust to watch my kids for 2 hours while I went to the grocery store.
Yeah, I think that we're going to find out a majority of our government people and infrastructure is potentially, either fraudulent or untrustworthy in general. That I'm hopeful that comes to light because everyone needs to get, back up to speed and get re-educated as to how this all works. And let's move back towards freedom. That's my hope. That's what I'm having faith in that. But actually bringing it back to trailer parks, we just got shit lucky and everyone got scared of this virus in apartments, with the shared filters and AC systems. So we're selling mobile homes like hotcakes because all of our newer ones that are a little nicer and even high-end apartment grade type finishes. And, we're starting to even make enough to cover the home, our commission on the sales staff and maybe a couple bucks. And it's oh, cool. And we're moving them all, fast because it's all self-contained. And I never thought of that.
Revenue too.
Yeah. So, and then interest rates. So we did a couple deals this year where it was historically speaking, they would have been pretty tight off the first couple of years, but 3% interest only for a handful or 5 to 10 years, even full term, just smashing cash flow right off the gate.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's all good. It's kind of, the more that we dig in, the more that I just love mobile home parks to where it'll just continue to be fun to learn and grow. And I want to start traveling all over the country to learn different areas. I'm looking at Texas and Florida. And do you guys look at the markets that have runway length on landlord friendly environments? Is that kind of what you're targeting?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think that's Arizona, Texas, Florida. But we are looking at other areas. I think we even looked in Georgia and North Carolina at some units.
Yeah.
We're being optimistic because there's, we have our Hunter's built his kind of spreadsheet checklist and our kind of the strategy and methodology on how we look at, going in and putting it into a discounted model that still returns a 7% cap rate on a heavily discounted model. And then our goal is to drive that up to 12 to 14%.
Sweet.
With good management.
I love it. And now what loans are available for Like just say a $10 million storage facility?
Well, I would say that one of the great loans that is available up to 5 million is the SBA loan. And that's a 10% down loan. So I mean, even on a couple $1 million property, you're putting
200 grand.
Yeah, 200K down on a $2 million property. So those are great loans. And
damn, SBA does that for the smaller stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I'll have to look at that.
Business. So SBA is a great resource that not too many people use. Other than that, we're seeing a lot more opportunity for seller financing.
Yeah.
As well, because the seller can get, they don't have to deal with the management, that you can just collect a check from one person and
not pay the taxes, not cash out. Yeah.
Lesser tax consequence. And in a lot of cases, they're making 2 to 3 points more than they would anywhere else on the loan, right? Because you're not making any money in a savings account these days.
Right. No, I think that's awesome. Actually, mobile home parks in general used to be there. Significant transactional volume was done, seller carry, but then the banks got in hard and heavy, and it just hasn't really made sense in a while. Yeah, I'm going to dig more into storage. I actually know a guy. You should check him out. He's in Florida, or he has a significant holding of storage in mobile home parks in Florida. His group's called Elevation Capital. And I bump into him and chat with him every once in a while. And he raises like $250 million funds and buys storage and mobile home parks exclusively. And he did all his homework to know that like those two asset classes are the best. And I'm like, cool. All right. So yeah, it's a neat game. And I think hard assets is where it's at. Do you like Bitcoin or any of the?
Yeah, I think of Bitcoin as like digital gold. It's never going to be
a hedge.
Look, it's never going to replace our global currencies, right? Like the governments just won't allow that to happen.
I agree.
But will it be a highly valuable, like digital form of gold? Yeah, I think it's already proven it out with the institutional guys that have gotten involved. I think we're going to see a lot of like governments go cryptocurrency
for the future of currency. Yeah.
And God, I forgot what else you had asked something else about the economy. I just can't remember, but it's an interesting and exciting time. I think that we're living in a lot of opportunities out there. I mean, even in these virtual worlds, right? Like where people are buying real estate in VR, like wrap your head around that.
Wait, where?
Like these worlds like Second Life, where people are buying real estate in this virtual world. Like it's crazy to think about that kind of stuff.
And you mean like holding internet space as real estate, or?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well,
it's basically attention. Like that's the Gary Vee thing, right? He believes attention on the internet is similar to real estate. Well, hey man, it's been really good catching up with you. And if you do come across some fun stuff, I'm actually, we just had our first daughter.
Oh, congrats.
Thanks. Nice. So yeah, I got a 6-week-old little girl named Adeline. And so my wife and I are kind of reimagining our world, where we want to go and what we want to do and spend time with. And I'm really excited to kind of get out and travel.
I know what I was going to say. So I'll put my Puerto Rico influencer hat on for a sec. So, I moved here 5 years ago, but there are incredible opportunities in Puerto Rico, even on the real estate side. It's the lowest U.S. tax territory you can be in. It beats, all the states like Wyoming, Florida, Texas. So anyone listening, there's tremendous amount of opportunities to develop property here. I think even on the mobile side, storage side, I've seen a ton of opportunities. And if you move to Puerto Rico and get a qualified business to invest, all your investments are tax-free. So that's another plug. And I just think hopefully Puerto Rico gets statehood, because the real estate values are 10x like Hawaii. But it is like a huge undervalued, unknown quantity, because I have friends that are on mainland America, and they think, oh, Puerto Rico, I need my passport. I'm like, no, it's actually part of America. But anyway, I would.
That's cool.
any of your listeners may be interested. A lot of people moving down here because the weather's so good, and the tax situation is incredible.
And so basically, when you file a personal tax return now that you're a resident of Puerto Rico, do you pay taxes locally, or do you just pay like sales tax, or how does that work?
So, I mean, it works like a state, right? Where if you stay in a hotel, you're paying your tax to Puerto Rico, which is a commonwealth, not a state. So I know a guy that owns a big plumbing company in Texas, but he takes his income out as a consultant. So he stood up a Puerto Rico company. He takes the majority of his income out of the business as a consulting fee for his Puerto Rico business, and it's 100% tax-free.
Wow. Okay. And on a personal side too. So the business and then on a personal side.
If you move down here, and declare residency, any real estate investment you make, no capital gains, no tax, nothing. So it's your business. If you can have a business down here, you'll be taxed at a 4% flat tax rate, and that tax goes to Puerto Rico because Puerto Rico got a special agreement with Congress in 2012. And so you don't pay any federal tax. The company is taxed at a 4% flat rate. So it's a little complicated, but it is the best tax structure you can set up in America and not have to repatriate money. And a lot of people are, especially in the crypto boom, they figured it out really quick, came down to Puerto Rico. But there's a lot of ways. If you're getting passive income and paying yourself a big salary, you could potentially, have a massive reduction in taxes by having your residency in Puerto Rico. So that's why I'm plugging it.
Well, and that's a good point for people that would be ever willing to sell a park, or let's say we decided to punt the portfolio eventually. I should be a resident of Puerto Rico beforehand, is your point, which we're always playing the deferral game, the 1031 game. And so if we ever wanted to just be like, see ya and take the money and do something else with it, we could go down to Puerto Rico and pay 4%. Yeah. Which is cool.
You got to think about this stuff in advance because I got a panic call from a friend of mine who needed a tax lawyer intro because his stock in this company, which is benefiting from this run in the stock market and crypto as well. His couple $1 million holdings turned into $40 million holdings overnight. And he had to figure out what to do before the end of the year. Right. So and see,
that's where you get bit. That's where you get in trouble because you try to hurry it and you raise a red flag.
Yeah. And he's in California.
Oh yeah. Clawback. And
they're trying to have a 10-year clawback on taxes. So California is the worst state. But anyway, the point is take a look at Puerto Rico.
I love it. Are there any mobile home parks out there?
I have not seen any.
Okay. Shipping them in. Okay. My wrap-up question that I've been having fun with is you just made an extra 10 mil. Cool 10 mil off the top, and it's dry powder. What would your allocation be?
Oh, 90% real estate, 10% tech.
So 90% storage?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
10% in high risk but high return tech investment. And I probably would put some of that 10% into crypto as well, Bitcoin.
Good kind of hedge kind of a thing, just in case. Awesome. All right, Brandon. Well, hey, thanks again for catching up with me, man. And I want to stay in touch. And you're still flying a bunch, right? Do you have a plane down there?
I have a seaplane I'm a partner in down here. And then I still have my RV8 in Connecticut.
Okay. So did you ditch the RV6, the side-by-side one?
Yeah, I sold that. It was a great plane, but I got an 8. So it's a little bit bigger. It feels more like a fighter.
Yeah. And you're sitting tandem.
Yeah.
I've flown in an 8. They're sweet.
So I like it.
Cool. All right, buddy. Well, hey, tell Hunter I say hi, and I'd look forward to our next conversation and keeping in touch. And I'd like to bring, what's a good time of the year to come out if I wanted to come out to Puerto Rico? I
mean, in the winter, usually for really this, I would say any time around the summer. So don't come from June to August, but September to May is a good time. Weather's good. It's not hurricane season, and just it's a nice time of year.
Cool. All right, man. Well, hey, great chatting with you. Thanks for all the info, and I look forward to catching up next time.
Yeah, you too, Blake. Say hi to the wife, the sister, and your dad for me.
Hey, will do, man. Have a good one. All right, that wraps up the Trailer Park Podcast. Hit the subscribe button for some more great industry professional conversations about buying trailer parks.